Now, this latest announcement from the PBOC coming through from its mid-year report and the establishment of a financial stability committee, is this finally some signs that they're looking to maybe find a new way to shore up and rescue its property sector?
Well, they certainly would like to find a new way, although I speculate it has more to do with a lot of nervousness in the central bank. This Financial Stability Committee was actually established in January this year and announced late in June, sort of in a quiet news release, but I guess the news broke quite recently. I don't expect too much. The markets may take it favorably because the markets are always expecting Beijing to step in and sort of help all the property developers come out of their slump. But Beijing has also been quite reluctant, particularly under the guidance of Xi Jinping, to throw a lot of good money after bad. So I think that they're nervous and they're trying to figure out how to tamp down the fires, which may be worse in certain parts of China than other parts.
Throwing money, and I'm seeing a figure here, 1 trillion yuan that is needed, or $139 billion in order to stabilize some of the balance sheets at the property developers. What is the best way to go about finding this sum of money? There's been talk about a real estate stabilization trust.
Well, first of all, that figure of 140 billion US came from an advisor to the government at a think tank, and the advisors have always been talking about a number of ways of trying to help out the sector. So I don't take that as a commitment by the central government. Second of all, I mean, Evergrande itself has 300 billion US in debt. And there's also a mention in one of the news stories from Reuters about helping out the local government financing platforms, which have been very important to the property market and also to infrastructure in China. And they have 9 trillion USD of debt. So the government really does not have the capacity to try to backstop all of the implicit debt that's in the system. What they can do, and what they've tried to do last year, which is to do help a little bit of money for unfinished projects and a little bit of shantytown construction for low-income housing. But the idea that they're going to swoop in and go to some of the big developers and some of the middle and upper middle class and provide a lot of funds, I think is a pipe dream, particularly since Xi Jinping does not believe that the real estate sector is part of the goal of the future of China, which is really focused on technology.
Now, on that pipe dream, there has been some suggestion that the focus would be on the 30 of the biggest property developers. Do you think that that is realistic, or do you think that we can expect to see some consolidation in the industry?
Oh, I certainly expect consolidation, particularly among the smaller players in the weaker parts of the country, particularly in the West. The central bank would be sort of torn about helping the big developers. On the one hand, it's a good idea because, of course, many are listed, and so if they collapse, if they default, it looks very bad. And they also are large, so if you go to one developer, you can do a bailout and you could help a lot of property. On the other hand, a lot of those developers are basically sold investment properties to upper middle class people who, a lot of whom can actually afford to take the hit if their property goes down in value. The fundamental problem, though, is this is really a demand problem. It's not a supply problem. Beijing loves to tackle all of its problems through supply, increasing, steel production, making sure the SOEs are running on time, and now the property sector. But at the end of the day, demand has to fall quite substantially, and it has yet to bottom out. Sales in June were down 23% year over year. So until we see a flattening out of the entire property market, then there's no point in doing a lot of recaps. The question is, how do you mitigate the damage so you don't have, a panic?
So you're saying that we haven't seen the floor yet in terms of demand?
Well, if you see a 23% drop in June year over year, that suggests to me that we're not there yet. It may come in 2026, but we've got some more blood to be let before then.
Okay, I want to go back to the big property developers and Evergrande because just recently, in recent weeks, they had hit their deadline for the resumption of trade in their shares. And if they don't resume, they're going to be facing a delisting from the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. And this comes together with the Hong Kong courts ordering the liquidation of China Evergrande, and of course the lawyers are trying to, of course, carry that out. What do you think the fate of Evergrande is?
Well, that's a very good question. I mean, it's huge and it has mammoth debts. First of all, the Hong Kong courts don't have a lot of jurisdiction in the mainland, even though technically they're supposed to. At the end of the day, this is a political question that's got to be solved by the company, the central government, and possibly one of the local governments. Second of all, the biggest bailout they've had in recently was in I think it was China Vanke in Guangdong, and they ended up getting Guangdong to contribute money to that bailout. I believe it was China Vanke. And that was very interesting because basically Beijing was saying, well, look, this isn't our money. This isn't our problem. You guys down in Guangdong figure out a way to come up with some money. So I think it was Shenzhen Metro or some other company, an SOE owned by the local government. That's the kind of bailout Beijing likes because basically they can blame it on the local governments. And to some degree, they think that the whole property bubble and its collapse was the fault of the local governments, which is not really true. But I don't expect, with Evergrande, it's a little more difficult because it's so large that the bailout would have to involve central government money. But I don't think that the central bank is willing to come up and bail out a $300 billion debt for a developer. It may help some projects if it feels like a default is in the offing, or break up the company and split it into pieces and sell it off. But it's not going to do a wholesale bailout.